Yo, I just wanted to make this video to teach you guys a little bit about skateboarding. And so what I'm going to tell you today is about pressure and heel side pressure and toe side pressure. So this goes for all mini ramps or ledges or rails or whenever you're skating anything that's just got one thing to it. It could also be the same if it's wider, but more so when it's thinner like this. So especially for mini ramps and round rails, this is really important. So when you get onto a rail like this, whether it's coping or whether it's a rail, the pressure that you have on the top of the board really makes a huge difference. And so your foot has two main points of pressure, the ball of your foot and the heel. And so when you're putting more pressure on the heel side of the board, you're going to put more pressure on this wheel and this side of the truck. And so if whatever trick you're trying to do, depending on that, you got to either apply more pressure on the heel side or the toe side. So let's say I'm going up and I'm trying to do, like I'm goofy foot and I'm trying to do a front side 50-50 grind and then drop back in, right? So when I get up to the coping, if I get up under the coping and I'm like this, which is not actually right, but if I did, then I need to understand that it's really a good idea to have more pressure on the heel side of the board so that it goes back in properly. And same thing for this. If I get up like this like normally and I put pressure on the toe side of my board, which would be this side, and then I go drop back in, it's probably going to hang up like that when I go back in. So I need to do a front side grind and put pressure on the heel side of the board, and then that wheel will come in properly. Okay. Same thing kind of goes for any of these crooked grind or Smith grind or feeble grind combinations. If you're in a Smith like this and you put more pressure on the toe side of the board, which would be the far side in this case, in this example, then it might hang up before I go back in. So you've got to apply pressure to the heel side, and that'll also even allow you to grind it more. And so the pressure's got to be on this side of the board, so when it goes back in, it goes in properly. Okay, especially for 5.0s, because if you have one point of contact, it's really important that you get the pressure correct. Because if the pressure is incorrect with one point of contact, all your balance is weighting over one point. And so that means that your entire body can slam much harder if you don't get the pressure correct. People that do things really fast and really smooth make it look really easy, but in learning, you're not going to find it as easy. You've got to just learn is where to put pressure and where to balance your weight when you're doing a particular trick. So with a 5.0 front side, you want to put weight over the heel edge of the board if your plan is to go back into the ramp. If you want to go off the ramp, or if you want to transition to some other kind of a trick, like let's say you do like a 5.0 and you want to go into rock and roll after that, you'd want to put pressure onto the toe side of the edge of the board so it goes like that and then go back in. Right? So it really just depends on the trick you're trying to do and the direction you're trying to go. You want to make sure that you're applying pressure to the proper side of the board. Now in some tricks, it's possible to do the trick in multiple ways. Like for instance, a crooked stall or like a nose pick stall. You can nose pick like this, where just like let's just say I'm goofy, the toe edge would be locked in. Or you can nose pick like this, where the heel edge is locked in. Okay, so there's two different ways to do it. One's like a little bit more proper, which would be this way, and one's a little bit less proper, which is this way, but it's another way to do it. So if it's this way, right, you're going to be putting pressure on your heel to stall, whereas if it's this way, it's more pressure on the toe side of your board to stall, the ball of your foot, right? So, and you might even put toe side pressure and just kind of land in here, especially when you're first getting started with nose picks. But the key is if you want to go back into the ramp like this, you're going to have to apply heel side pressure to the board, otherwise the board might not come back in. Now, in order to lock in the first place, you've got to apply toe side pressure. But in order to come back in, you're going to have to equalize that out. So, you know, and sometimes it's just kind of an equal amount. It's not like more or the other. So just kind of like depending on the trick and where you want to go with it, it's a really good idea to consider that. Because if you put too much toe side pressure on a nose pick that you want to come back in on, you know, it's going to make the board go this way, not that way. So this way would be coming like this or just not coming back in properly. So maybe that's a combination you want to do, but just keep that in mind, folks. When you're learning a trick is what side of the board you're putting more pressure on, especially for beginners. If you're trying just a 50-50 on a round rail, you really want to lock into the space here. You don't want to be floating kind of halfway through. You want to lock in between your wheel and your truck. And that side of the board that you're locking in on is going to be the side of the board you want to put more pressure on. If you lock in like this and you put pressure on the other side of the board, it's going to slop over the rail. This happens a lot when you're trying backside 50-50s on round rails, is like you might lock in this way, but your pressure is over here still. And so the board will slough off and your body will go this direction, you'll eat shit. So you got to be really careful. And you got to just put the pressure on the board in the place where it's locking in, and then also in the direction you want to go with the trick or out of the trick. right, guys, I hope this little quick tip helps you, and if you liked it, definitely subscribe to the channel and look out for more videos.